Hello YouTube, StuckInAPool here, and today I've got some more Fire Emblem Heroes stuff for you today. So today I want to start another series. I was originally going to do this as like a one-off video and talk about a lot of heroes. Instead I decided I'm just going to do it as kind of like a mini-series and talk about still quite a few heroes, but it'll make the video a lot shorter, a little easier to manage, a little easier for someone to watch. So anyway, what I want to do is basically make a series all about creating arena teams and picking units to go on your teams and kind of basically picking units that you can merge up to like plus 10 and basically create an arena core of. If your goal is to get in tier 20, more or less kind of the usual strategy is pick 3 units that mesh well together, get them a plus 10, and they'll score well enough that you should be good to go. So basically, I just want to suggest some units here that are good candidates for merging to 5-star plus 10 that you could kind of maybe insert into your team to make that, you know, 3-man arena core that people tend to do, because usually you want to get that 3-man core and then just have your bonus unit. So when it comes to discussing units that are really good candidates for merging up to plus 10, there are a few criteria that I'm going to go ahead and talk about in this first video. I'll probably not harp on it as much in the coming ones, but since this is the first one, you know, I kind of want to lay some ground rules, I suppose, for how I'm going to be judging, you know, units more or less. So first off, the first criteria is make sure it's a unit you like. I mean, that's super cheesy, but it's also, I mean, it's important. If you have a team of units you don't really care that much for their characters or their designs or whatever, you're not going to be as excited about using them. Arena's going to be kind of more of a chore than anything. You use units you kind of like using, you know, characters you like, you'll enjoy it more. It'll go better. Next, units that have lower skill inheritance value are typically better ideas. You're not going to lose as much by merging them away. If they have valuable skills that you could give to other units, you're going to feel kind of bad about, you know, merging them and not using them for their skills. Next criteria, since we're talking about merging them for arena, we're going to take into account what their score is. So that being said, horses don't score well. Ranged units don't score entirely well either. You could still get away with using ranged units, but if you're going to try and go into arena with horse emblem, you're not going to stay in tier 20. It just doesn't work. So I'm taking arena score into account a lot when talking about these units. So I'm definitely going to consider units base, total, and what their score can be when talking about them here. Armors are always going to be the best. Melee, infantry, and flyers can score pretty well. Infantry, mages, and archers don't score as well, but you could definitely get away with having one on your team as long as your other units do well. Next, skills. So you want to have units with as many high-cost skills as possible. So that meaning units with unique weapons or unique specials, or just in general high-cost ABC skills and good seals and all that. So if a unit comes with them, it's automatically going to make them more valuable, especially if it's unique to them and you can't be used with anyone else. So as much as you can, you're going to want to run units that are good at running skills like Aether or their own unique specials or dual rallies, but honestly, maybe just having one of those and then a lot of movement skills are probably the best idea for assists. Any other good A, B, and C skills. And of course, if you have a blessing on your unit and you're running the legendary hero that corresponds with it, you're going to get a small boost as well. That's not something that's like detrimental to your team, but it will give you a boost if, you know, if it works out well for you. It's a good idea. And last thing to consider when you're building your core, this isn't so much related to one individual unit, but when you're building your core, make sure you have a diverse set of units. Make sure you have, you know, evenly split, you know, magic and physical damage, you know, pretty good, someone with good defense, someone with good resistance, maybe someone who's kind of in the middle. Try and mix it up as best as you can so you're kind of prepared for any kind of situation. And when you are creating that core, kind of look at a unit you have, start with one, maybe look at some weaknesses they have. Think of a unit that'll cover those weaknesses, go on from there, pick another unit that covers their weaknesses, and make sure they mesh well together. Speaking to my personal example, right now my arena core is still being formed. It started off with Sheena. Sheena is my favorite hero. She's at 5-star plus 10 right now. She's pretty well done. And from there I was like, okay, what's her biggest weakness? Right now, her biggest weakness is, since her resistance is pretty high, right now swords are her biggest weakness. So I figured I had a pretty good now, so I started building her up. She's a plus 7 right now, so she's the next project. And when she's done, I'm kind of looking at something to cover both of their weaknesses. Right now he just doesn't like fighting mages, and Sheena, like I said, swords. But she also has a little trouble with axes and red mages. So I'm looking at someone that can kind of cover mages and axes kind of well. So I'm looking at units like, you know, Sheeta, since she's got a wing sword now, she's pretty good. Roy, you're going to lose out on triangle depth, so I probably won't do that. Maybe Sella for Erica. If Erica gets a refinement, I'm going to be on that real quick. And maybe Lilina. She's another unit I'm considering with the triangle depth. Blade Tome, Red Tome Breaker, she'd pretty much do the job that I needed her to do. So, you know, just think like that when you're making your core. A little side note for the sake of this video and probably the rest of the videos, I'm probably not going to be including any seasonal heroes. Just for the sake of, unless you're a whale, you're probably not looking to 5-star plus 10 the seasonal heroes. Depending, some of them have more skill value than others, but most of them, at least now, are getting really, really high value skills. So even if you do manage to get 11 of them, you're probably going to use some of those on skills. So I'm not going to worry about that right now. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to be talking about, in this video, a total of 12 heroes. So I'm going to do 3 of each color. And for each color, I'm going to split that up into basically 3 tiers. Those 3 tiers being the summoning rates for each hero. So 3 and 4 stars, 4 and 5 stars, or 5 stars only, which I'm going to call the free-to-play tier, Dolphin tier, and Whale tier, respectively. The units in the free-to-play tier, of course, are much easier to get. You know, you can get them at 3 and 4 star. The 3-star pool has not changed at all. So if you're going to be getting a 3-star, you've got a pretty good chance of getting a unit you want, at least. It's going to take a lot of feathers and a lot of time, but you can do it. And then the Dolphin tier, it's going to take less time and significantly less feathers. You're going to have to do a little more summoning, and you have to get kind of lucky. If you get all 4 stars, you're still going to be spending a lot of feathers. Not quite as many as the 3 to 4 star. But if you do get a lot of 5-star units of, you know, who you're looking for, then you're going to spend a lot less feathers. It's going to be a little easier. But so this one kind of depends on your luck. And then there's the Whale tier. Those who see a 5-star unique unit and want to get to plus 10. You know, you can do it if you're not a whale. It's going to take a lot of patience and a lot of luck. You may be waiting for a while, but you can do it. Or if you just have tons of money to throw at the game, you can do that and just keep going until you have 11 of them and you move on. And then when your bank statement comes, you can, you know, cry a little. No, okay. But for real though, make smart financial decisions. Don't let this game ruin you. Okay, all of that behind us now. We're going to go ahead and start with our red units. Starting at the top with our free-to-play tier, 3 and 4 star available. I want to talk about Adult Tiki. So Adult Tiki is a great candidate for building up now that dragons are so strong. I'm going to be talking about a lot of dragons today. So she's the first one. So Tiki is basically a defense tank who dishes out a pretty good amount of magic damage. So she's good at fighting physical melee units. She's a pretty great candidate for the typical dragon build now: lightning breath, steady breath, you know, quicker post, rest is flexible. And the nice thing about her is the units that she wants to tank the most, bow users and axes, mostly axes, they tend to have pretty low resistance, so she can do pretty good damage to them. Of course, with bow users, it doesn't really matter because she's going to target the lower stat anyway. But, you know, axe users and swords, she'll hit them pretty hard. Our next tier up, we have Lilina. So I went with her. Like I said, I'm heavily considering her, so that might bias my decision here a little bit. But she is a really good candidate. There are more, and like I said, I'll get to them later too. But Lilina is a very hard-hitting red tome user. She's great with a blade tome. You could run a raven build if you want with her, but personally I think blade tome's one of the better options. Her speed's actually salvageable if you want to. It is a super boon, so if you get good speed and you can buff her up, give her darting blow or something like that, she can probably double a few units, but most people would, and I probably would, go ahead and give her a one-hit KO build. One nice thing about picking her is, kind of like Tiki, she really doesn't have that much in the way of skills, so you're not going to be losing out on much. Tiki has lightning breath, so that's kind of valuable, but Lilina doesn't really have anything. She has attack plus 3, which is good on some healer builds, I guess, maybe. It's good on some builds. But you're not missing a lot. Personally, with her, I would give her, like I said, Triangle Adept, and a Red Tome Breaker, or a Sword Breaker, something like that, and a Blade Tome. And like I mentioned earlier, the only issue with using her is that her BSC is kind of low, so you have to make sure your other units on your core team have pretty high scores, so they make up for it. Moving up to our Whale tier. If you've been playing Tier 20 Arena lately, you've probably seen this man several times, and he's probably ruined your day at least once. Zelgius. So, Zelgius, basically Power Crep Black Knight. I didn't know it would be done so soon, but whatever. He pretty much requires someone that can somewhat counter him if you're running Arena, because his combination of high speed means he won't get doubled, and he will probably double a lot of your units. He has really high defense, and he has really pretty good attack. So you can't chip him down because he'll Black Luna you in the face. Mages have trouble with him because they can't double him, and then he'll hit them really hard back. He's troublesome, and really all you need to make him good is quicker post or vengeful or bold fighter. He's good to go. I'll never forget the time when he warped, got danced, and warped again to move a total of 5 spaces across the map, and absolutely murdered the poor mage I had on my team. I don't remember who it was at the time, but it was not pretty. Alright, so now our blues. So our free-to-play tier unit that I picked here is Gwendolyn. So Gwendolyn is really good. Armors are great. She has good mixed defenses. That's the only reason why I honestly like Gwendolyn more than I like Effie. Obviously, Effie is much stronger, her attack's much higher, but Gwendolyn has a lot more survivability. The issue is she does lean on her special a lot to do damage because her attack's kind of low, but if you just give her Slang Lance and give her the distant counter and quicker post / vengeful fighter combo, she's good to go. Bonfire, iceberg, whatever's higher, depending on your build. Probably bonfire. She's a good unit. Moving up to our Dolphin tier, one of the units I have on my team, and I think a very strong unit, Naui. So Naui is basically a blue version of Tiki, adult Tiki. A little faster, a little higher resistance. So she's like a little less specialized, but I honestly think she's a little stronger. Just like Tiki, she wants that lightning breath, steady breath, quicker post. And for the sake of both of them, the fact that quicker post is a sacred seal now opens up their beast slot for a lot of other scary combinations. Like, Vanish, quicker post together is weird and scary, but it works well. The nice thing about Naui is the sword infantry meta, I guess, is pretty strong right now. Your Ares, Mias, like Zelgius, like I mentioned earlier, it's pretty strong, so you gotta have some counters for it. She can do real well. So for our whale tier, this is one of my personal favorite characters, so again, I could be a little biased here, but I went with Lute. So Lute has a unique weapon, so that's going to boost her score a little bit. And the nice thing about her weapon is it patches up her speed, so her speed's good too, because normally it wouldn't be that strong. Plus it comes with speed ploy, so I think Lute's really a little underrated, even though people say she's good. I think she's better than people give her credit for. Her resistance is really high to run the ploys that she comes with the resistance ploy. You could run a ploy in her S slot. Just give her Fury Desperation. She's good to go. The only thing that hurts with merging her away is that you're losing out on her resistance ploy, but I think she's worth it. So now for our greens, starting with our free-to-play tier, I went with Nino. So Nino, it's pretty common sense why she's good. She has great returns for pretty minimal investment. She comes with a Blade Tome, which is what she wants. Just give her Fury and Desperation. She's good to go. C slot's definitely up to you. You can give her whatever you need on your team. She's got a great offensive spread, and her speed's good enough, and her resistance is pretty good, so she can tank mages pretty well. She's not going to get doubled that often, if at all. So Nino's a very strong unit. Moving up to our Dolphin tier, I went with here Faye, and again, dragons. They're good right now. And she's actually, I think, perfect for the new Lightning Breath upgrade. New. It's not really new anymore, but the newish Lightning Breath upgrade. Since she actually wants to fight mages more, normally it would be kind of a stalemate because she has higher resistance. So, like I said, with her high resistance, she doesn't mind tanking mages, but she wouldn't do as much damage because they tend to have more resistance too. But now she can target their lower defense and be a lot more effective. So again, I mentioned the builds for Tiki and Naui. Faye can pretty much run the same build, but now she has Warding Breath, so she can tank mages even better. And her speed is a little higher than theirs, but she still probably wants quicker post. She's still not quite fast enough to do a lot of doubling. And like Naui, she's one of the BST boosted dragons, so overall she'll score a little better too, unlike adult Tiki, unfortunately. And our last screen, up in the whale tier, we have Amelia. So if you, again, like Zelgius, if you played Tier 20 Arena, you've probably seen Amelia. She is definitely one of the most common units because her stat total is absurdly high. She has the highest BST in the game, excluding seasonals. The winter armors, and I think now Ellie would maybe have higher total stat totals than Amelia, but she's still, besides them, the highest, so she's going to score absurdly well. And then the other thing about her is her stats are a lot like Zelgius / Black Knights. She can run either player phase or enemy phase, especially since she comes with Armor March. You give her Distant Counter and Vengeful Fighter, or you could go for a player phase arena build and give her like Bold Fighter and like anything. She can run a lot of builds really well, no matter what. Her only downfall is her somewhat low resistance. It's even salvageable because she's fast enough. She's not going to get hit too hard. So Amelia is a great choice. And our last color, or lack thereof, the colorless units. Starting with our free-to-play tier. I was kind of back and forth on this, but I went with Gordin. So Gordin has pretty good attack. He has really high defense. So I was actually thinking of making an anti-bow unit with guard bow and bow breaker. And I was looking at which archers have good defense. So naturally I thought Leon. And then I realized that Gordin actually has higher defense. So Gordin's really good at tanking other bows and daggers and any physical unit. If you wanted to give him a guard bow and maybe close counter and quick post and maybe the close defense seal, he'd overall be a really good tank. Now, I'm saying all this in theory. I've never built a Gordin, but I think in practice it would actually work better than people would expect. Moving up to our next tier, the Dolphin tier. I went with Sothe, the green hair thief guy from Radiant Dawn. So he has the highest attack of all the dagger users, and his speed is definitely respectable. It's not the fastest of the daggers, but he is fast. And he has a really good unique weapon. On top of scoring well, it works really well as a support kind of weapon. Works good on... It'll benefit just about any team. You could keep his life and death and run Vantage with it. That's what I'm doing. I think that works pretty well. Or you could switch it out for just a Fury Desperation. It's kind of up to you. But either way, he's actually a really strong unit. Of course, by merging him, you are missing out on 4-star life and death. But, it's up to you, And for the whale tier of our color list, our last unit today, I went with Inez. So he is an excellent mage fighter. His resistance is really high. His speed's pretty good. So just stack allies around him and he'll do a good job fighting mages for you if you need him to. And the good thing is you don't really have to build a lot of skills to buff him. Like I said, you just have to sit allies by him and they will buff him way up. And if you have a lot of drives too, he'll be pretty much invincible to mages. His defense is really bad, so don't expect him to fight any archers or anything, and honestly, he's rare enough that I personally wouldn't want to use him for skill inheritance. The only skill he has that's really worth a lot is Cancel Affinity, but Matilda also has that. So you're not missing out on a whole lot. He does have like I mentioned, he has a unique weapon. That's going to help us score. In terms of building him, I wouldn't use Fortress Resistance unless you're going to lean a lot on ploys. But I feel like Fury is going to be the better option because he could use the attack and the speed as well, and you're only losing 2 more resistance. If he was minus resistance, that'd be a different story. And I would keep Cancel Affinity because Raven Tomes are still a thing, and just give him some ploy skills. Let him debuff and destroy mages all day. So yeah, those are the units that I'm going to talk about today. That's all. If I didn't talk about your unit, I apologize. I basically made this list by just glancing at the tier list and looking at unit availability and kind of looking for units that I have some experience with at least, or some knowledge of. If I didn't talk about a unit, it doesn't mean they're not a great candidate. Like I said, I'm going to talk about more later, so maybe you'll see them come up later. So since team building was such a big aspect of that video, I went ahead and kind of formed the units into 3 teams of 4. Before I talk about each team, I just want to mention that I know this is really about building Arena Core of 3 and then subbing in the bonus unit. So each of these teams, you could pretty much pluck out one unit and put in the bonus unit if you need to, and they'd still be okay. So our first team, we went with 1 of each color. Like I said, you want to be well-rounded. We have Tiki, Lute, Amelia, and Inez. So like I said, the best way I think to do it is to look at a unit's weakness and say, hey, this person covers it. So Tiki's big weakness is pretty much any magic, but mostly blue mages. Amelia can tank them. If she's distant counter, she will murder them. Amelia's big weakness is going to be any red mage, because her resistance is pretty rough. Lute can tank red mage and destroy them. Lute's, of course, big weakness is going to be an axe. Tiki gets that. No problem. But between those 3, probably their biggest issue is going to be mages in general. Lute can take red and blue mages. Green mages, maybe not. Tiki and Amelia don't want to fight their same color mages. Inez can cover all of that. So, and like I said, you could pluck one of them out if you need to, put in your bonus unit, and you'll probably be just fine, even if it's not as well-rounded. Second team that I kind of made here, we have Lilina, Gwendolyn, Faye, and Gordin. So using our same method, Lilina's big weakness is going to be any lance-wielding unit. Faye can more or less take care of them just fine. Her defense isn't the greatest, but it's respectable enough. She's fast enough. She can take them out, and Gwendolyn honestly could help with that too. Gwendolyn's big issue, depending on your build, is probably going to be green mages. Lilina has no problem with that. And then Faye's big weakness is going to be swords, and Gwendolyn's not worried about those at all. And then since the resistance on the team overall is a little higher than the defense, Gordin just kind of rounds things off pretty well. And then our last team of the units we talked about here, we have whoever's left. Zelgius, Naui, Nino, and Sothe. Or Sothe. I still don't know. So Zelgius' biggest weakness is nothing. No. Probably blue mages. Reinhardt's, Reinhardt, Olwen, those two are probably his biggest threats. Nino shrugs them off pretty easily. As for Nino, she doesn't want to be hit by a sword. Naui will step right in front for her. You don't have anything to worry about there. And now he worries about green mages. Zelgius will take one hit. He might take a decent amount of damage, but he will destroy a green mage in probably one hit. He won't need more than one. And then I put Sothe on this team just because he can debuff and then buff his allies, which is going to help Nino a lot. And then Naui and Zelgius can step in and either get Nino out of the way or just tank the debuffed enemies and be just fine. So anyway, that'll be the end of this video. I just want to say that this is like 50% theory and 50% practice. I've used most of these units at least at some point, some of them more than others, and some of them I may not have used at all. So I'm kind of just going off of, hey, this would probably work really well. So I'll say right now, it's definitely not 100% accurate, but I think if you were to build a team with these units, you would not be let down. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. I hope you have great luck in your summons, and I hope I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.